Welcome back to BRAP. It is Wednesday, June the 26th, 2024. And I want to give a big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Thank you for joining us again this evening. Do have quite a bit to talk about as relates to all things video games. And if you haven't done so, please do me a favor, hit that like button. And I'm going to drop a link here in the live chat. Please retweet, share the link on your favorite social media channel. Let everyone know that we're live. David Faulkner, Falky, is in the live chat. Falky, good to see you. I feel like I haven't talked to you forever, but it's great to see you here in the live chat. I'm assuming it is Thursday. Planet Earth made it to Thursday, I believe. Falky's, I think it's Thursday morning there, if I'm not mistaken, Falky. You probably correct me there, but great to see you. And anyhow, Falky says you locked me out again. What? Are you trying to join, Falky? I'm confused here. Maybe Falky's trying to join. Yes, we did make it to Thursday. Okay, anyhow. All right. So before we get the show started here, I do want to introduce our guest this evening. And we have with us an author, an actor, and somebody who's recently upgraded his gaming experience to PC. I want to welcome Ramon Terrell to the show. Ramon, welcome back to BRAP, sir. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I gotta say, this is my first time being able to do the show with Creative Kofi, which I am thrilled, as well as the legendary David Faulkner. I've been listening to you on the show quite a bit, so it's great to be on the show with you, and always Game Logic, who dipped out and hopefully come back. And obviously, as always, being on the show with you, BRAP. Looking forward to a great time. Thanks for having me, and let's go.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you on. I know it's kind of at the 11th hour, and I reached out to you, but look, thank you again, man. Thank you for answering the call. It's always great having you on, and I got to ask you, how is the PC experience going?
Okay, so first of all, it's terrible for the wallet because the Steam sale that's about to come tomorrow is already kicking my ass in advance. It kicked my ass in the winter. That's number one. Too many deals, not enough time, not enough money. Second, I would like to very vehemently praise ray tracing. And a lot of people talk about, it's wasted resources, it's too expensive, on yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. I hate ray tracing. Ray tracing isn't worth blah, blah, blah. Everyone has their opinions, and I respect everyone's opinion. But my opinion is, thank God for ray tracing, because it's just like, I've been playing Forza Horizon 5, and when I pass through that festival at night, sometimes I just want to just like pause it and fall to my knees and just start crying. It's just a beautiful thing.
That really is, man. PC's great. And I saw those screenshots that you shared with me of Forza, and it looks beautiful. It absolutely does. So,
Oh, man.
But yeah, the Steam sale, summer sales tomorrow. Yes, a lot of us will be spending money. But anyhow, on that note, I do want to welcome. He has joined us from Down Under, and it's Thursday. We have David Faulkner, Falky, with us. Falky, what's going on?
Hi, how's it going? Yes, glad to be here. Apologies for just jumping in. I was poking around and thought I'd just knock on the door and say hi. Yes, we made it to Thursday. It's beautiful, sunny, cracking day outside. It's a shame to be inside, actually, but yeah, glad to be here, and thanks for allowing me to gate crash.
No, Falky, you're always welcome, sir. You are always welcome. So feel free to join the party anytime you can. It's great. It's great having you on. We also have with us a returning guest. We have Creative Kofi, who's almost like a neighbor of mine, kind of. Actually, currently lives in the town that I used to live in. I think we missed each other by a couple years. But Kofi, welcome back to BRAP.
Yes, it is great to be back here. Thank you so much for inviting me in the first place. And I was just listening to Ramon talk about his PC upgrades, and I'm sitting here with the 1080 Ti, so I'm feeling pretty last gen, but it's still holding on. Maybe I need to consider experiencing ray tracing, in first person. I've still only seen it on like YouTube videos,
Oh my
outside of.
God, dude, it'll change your gaming life. Oh my God.
Goodness.
I can't. I cannot say enough how much it'll change. Like you won't want to do without it ever, ever.
Yeah, that is definitely something in the back of my brain. And really quick, I gotta mention. I think last time I was on here, I was in the middle of a Final Fantasy Rebirth run. I'm at the very end of my first run, and I realized I took on a quest that has a recommended level, I think almost 20 over my level. And I managed to beat one of the tough enemies. I don't know if you guys are talking spoilers yet, but I'm feeling myself right now. So I'm trying to get this particularly rare item that you usually wait for the second playthrough for. But yeah, I've got my work cut out for me. So gaming has been very, very hype this afternoon.
I got to tell you, I did finish Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Kofi.
Oh, okay.
And I won't spoil anything, but man, what a great game! I mean,
so good.
The feels. Oh man, I was, I don't.
Really quick before you share your thought,
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody, I don't know if I've ever said this on your cast that even though Final Fantasy VII is not my favorite Final Fantasy, Vincent Valentine's one of my favorite video game characters ever. And I felt like he was given so much respect in this game, and I just was not expecting that. And so, you know how he's kind of grumpy, right? Slightly, but he's kind of grumpy because he's
very
new
grumpy.
to the team. Yeah, he's like very grumpy. But I'm like, this is amazing. He's crossing his arms and leaning against the wall, but that's my guy, Vincent. When I was 12 years old, he was the coolest guy ever. So
I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Moment.
I haven't played it yet, so hearing you say that, because I was really wondering how they were going to do Vincent. So,
oh man,
I'm glad to hear you say that.
You're going to be so happy. It's intense, man. I can't even believe it. I'm still like sitting beside myself with some of the detail they've added to this game, man. Like,
yeah, and
blown away.
Even his appearance. I mean, like, I obviously I know it's not an apples to apples because obviously, you know, we're talking about a generations difference of hardware, you know.
Yes. But
even his outfit is very similar to his, like in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, is very similar to the original Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah,
you know, in terms of like the color scheme. I mean, obviously there's less detail, but like his hair, you know, like the bandana thing he wears, like, you know, like even like the red cape, whatever he's wearing, you know, like that, just the color of his outfit, like it's very, 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 from what I remember, very similar to the original Final Fantasy VII. So
I was concerned that he'd come out looking wonky, you know, in this game, especially. Well, I'll say this: in the movie that came out like 10 years ago, Advent Children, Vincent looked awesome. I think he looks better in this game, though. Just overall appearance.
I got to go back and watch Advent Children. So you think he looks better then?
Oh my gosh! I just think
wow.
I feel like his appearance is a little bit soft in Advent Children with his hair, but in this game, I don't know, he has that rigidity that I was expecting. I was like, I want him to look like he's gonna, you know, kill somebody immediately, as you know what he used to do before he was in a coffin. So I wanted that violence in his appearance, and I got everything I wanted. I was like, I just can't believe it. Usually, a game like this is screwed up somewhere, and maybe besides the game, maybe having one too many quests or a little bit of spike in difficulty with these missions I'm doing at the end here. I don't really have anything to complain about. It's crazy.
I gotta say, I also enjoyed the character Kate Sith.
So much more fleshed out.
Yeah, a lot more fleshed out. I mean, like Kate was actually a pretty good character. It's just such a like it's my game of the year right now. It's my game of the year.
It's hard for me to take it from the number one spot.
I mean, I think Falky's rolling his eyes like, what? Falky's shaking his head.
There's a lot of hype coming out. You know, like I'm looking forward to Space Marine 2. My favorite JRPG series is getting a new release in September. So there'll be competitors, but like this feels like the content of two games. You count all the mini games in this game, not all of them are great. All right, I hate that Cactar, kill the Cactar with Yuffie and Aerith. I just hate that minigame so much.
I didn't like that
overall,
mini game either. I didn't really
Yeah.
care for a lot of the mini games, but except for what was the card game? Queen's Blood.
Oh, Queen's. But what'd you think of Fort Condor's return?
I don't know. Really didn't. I don't have an opinion on it. Really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
But overall, I thought it was a good game, like a really good game. I definitely like it better than Remake.
Yeah, I love the changes to the combat from Remake. Added just what I was hoping for, and yeah, man, I'm curious how big the last game will be. Like, I almost think does it need to be this big? I don't know. Is that weird to say?
I'm hoping it's not bigger. Like we got to get the size of these games under control. I know a lot of people will be like, no, just because you can't, blah blah blah, and it's like, I mean, yeah, selfishly, I would like these games to be a little smaller because I just feel, maybe I can't speak to Rebirth because I haven't played it, but a lot of it's bloat that could be trimmed back. But I feel like, if they could get these games down to a manageable, something just smaller, the dev times might be shorter. The costs will most certainly go down, and, we might get, titles from these studios a little more frequently, but they're just too big. Like, sometimes you open up these maps and you're just like, oh my God.
Well,
the whole reason why I stopped at Assassin's Creed Origins was because I was exhausted when I finished that, and then I immediately went and looked at the map to Odyssey, and then heard Valhalla was the same size or bigger, and I tapped out. Now I'm gonna be back for Shadow, but I tapped out on after Origin because they're just too big.
Hey, so Kofi? Like, I know you just asked me about Fort Condor, and I was kind of like, on it because like. Or if my memory serves me correct, like I believe that it was a side mission, right, and that you had to like do Fort Condor for the side mission, right, in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like that, I felt like I was like, I could have done without that.
Yeah, sometimes if they dump you in the new map and they're like, "Here's 20 things to do," and you're like, but I want to know what happens next.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but Queen's Blood was actually like the one thing I enjoyed because there was. I love the challenge of the Queen's Blood. And just being able to figure out like what card to lay down and getting new cards. And like that's the one. And of course, I enjoyed playing the piano. Playing a Tifa's theme song an Aerith theme song just doesn't get old.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of nostalgia played with me too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And when they all were together for the first time, I was just like, this is just too much right now. I had to like put the controller down. I think my family walked in like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just enjoying this moment. So
I mean, the first time we see Aerith in Remake, I was like, I put the controller down. And I was like, wow. Here's Aerith and Cloud. And I haven't seen them. It's funny I say them. Like I have a personal relationship with them. but I haven't seen them in 20 years. Oh, 20
exactly.
I mean 20 what? The game came out in what, 97?
Yeah.
98?
Yeah.
So I hadn't seen them in 24, 25 years.
Yeah, it feels so
and
real.
even Sephiroth, I mean, seeing him, I'm like, there he is. Like the first time seeing him.
Yeah. Now we get to see. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was saying, for me, just a lot of nostalgia, and that's obviously like why. That's one reason why it's my game of the year. It's just. But the game's good. It's a good game. Great story. Great cast of characters. Great dialogue amongst the characters. The game can be cheesy at times.
Yeah.
But there's some darker undertones to the game,
Motivations make a lot more sense now.
Yes,
So
they absolutely
that's
do.
what I like.
They really do. Like especially with a Cloud,
Right.
But anyhow, I don't want to turn this to a Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
podcast because I know this gentleman might end up leaving the show And that is Game Logic. Game Logic, what's going on? How are you this evening?
Good, man. How are you guys?
Doing well, man. And I see Falky. Falky, Final Fantasy VII's Rebirth is up there for you, right? You guys can see Falky. The way Falky's on video, you guys can't see him. He's got a grin on his face.
I love the music. Love it.
Great music.
The settings and the way that the artistic work is brilliant. The combat can go do one. It frustrates the hell out of me how the combat works in some instances. And the way that they portray Barrett and a couple of other characters, I'm fully in agreement with Vincent. When I saw him pop out, chef's kiss, brilliant. The way that they've written him and portrayed him, great. But the way that they portray Barrett is appalling in my perspective compared to what he was in the original. But yeah, it's probably sitting somewhere around a 7 or an 8 out of 10 for me at the moment. There's some really good stuff in there, but there's some things that just irritate me relentlessly.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Falky. I disagree. But
it's funny. It's funny the Barrett. Like, I haven't seen his portrayal in this game, but I do remember in Remake. I remember the first time Barrett showed up, I held my breath because he was so like just stereotyped blaxploitation style written character in the original that like I remember the first time I became conscious of having to flip a switch in my brain to endure things like that if I wanted to be entertained, because it wasn't all like it was in film, it was in games, and I just remember having to just flip a switch and ignore it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to play or watch anything that involved a black character. So I thought he was far better, and I really liked the way he the dialogue and everything. Like it was so much better. But I don't know what they did to him in Rebirth. Hopefully it's not too bad, but I guess I'll see eventually.
Mainline story is consistent with Remake, but when you get off into the fetch quests or the side quests and all that sort of stuff, some of the crap that he comes across, just his mannerisms and the way he's written, and it's almost like a poor comic relief. It irritates me so much that they took someone who is so powerful and so driven to his cause and just deteriorated him into a parody of a laughingstock, and that irritates me immensely.
That almost reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy. What's his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Drax. Yeah.
Like the movies, I remember playing the game and I was just like, oh, somebody that actually gets Drax. And now don't get me wrong, I'm not a comic book person, but I know a little bit about the character. And I just remember watching Guardians of the Galaxy and not knowing anything about the comics. And I'm like, I get the feeling this character shouldn't be the slapstick comic relief they're making him out to be. It's almost like they're making him out to be a joke. And then when I learn more about the character, I'm like, yeah, like I don't understand why they feel the need to do stuff like that. So it sounds like that kind of energy.
Man, now you have me thinking back to some of the scenes. And I don't know if would you say it's. I'll just ask one question. Do you think it's how he says some of his side banter? Would that be the main thing?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I suppose everybody's got a personal perspective, and I don't want to drag anybody else's experiences down because my gripe with it is more around the combat. But I played the original for 500, 600, 700 hours total, so I've got a bias for it. But just the way that his body language goes along with some of the way he says things when it could be a very hard-edged response, and it just becomes this sort of gimmicky throwaway, it just doesn't suit the character. This comes back to the magic of games conversation over a lot of people all the time. In the original, we had to read the damn thing, so we built that character in our heads based off what was on the screen, and we got to imagine that character in our own minds as to what they were like based off what we'd read and seen on TV and movies and all this other stuff ourselves. And how I built Barrett in my head as a kid or a younger adult when I was playing it is not even close to what he's come across now. And some of the stuff that they've got him done with the character development is brilliant, especially his increased passion and drive for his cause, I think is great. But some of the goofy stuff they've got him doing, it drives me nuts. And don't even me started about what they did with Red. That drove me up the wall. I actually turned the thing off immediately and walked away from it for a couple of weeks. That drove me. Irritated the shit out of me.
I know what you're talking.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that another time. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil, but I think I know what you're talking about. If we're talking about the same thing, which I think we might be, I was kind of like, I could do without that, but yeah. No, those are. I hear you, folks.
Anyway, I'll stop griping about it now. Yeah. I don't want to drag anyone else down about it, and I'll stop whinging.
Yeah. So let me grab the super chat quickly here. Yobo1245 with the $5 super chat. Thank you for that super chat. I really appreciate the support. He says apparently Stellar Blade is a flop for doing 1 million in 2 months, despite being the first console game from a mobile game dev. How's Hellblade 2 doing? Well, thank you for that. Super chat, Yobo. I think I know what you're referring to. I did see one particular content creator question the success of Stellar Blade, but people are at times going to use arbitrary numbers or metrics to define what is success for a particular game. My understanding is that Shift Up is actually also considering additional DLC for the original and a potential sequel to Stellar Blade, which I haven't gone back and played. I haven't played it yet. I played the demo, but I haven't played it yet because my backlog, and now I'm deep into the Elden Ring DLC, the Erdtree. But no, it sounds like if they're, I think in Logic, you and I were discussing this week. If they're having conversations around potential DLC content and a sequel, I would imagine that the game probably did do well for them. So,
I mean, there's information going around. I haven't seen that this is corroborated, but I'll just call it hearsay for now that Shift Up has received $15.8 million, or just south of $16 million in royalty payments off of the sales of Stellar Blade. So, again, we do things like we focus on numbers, like one, not focusing on data, focusing on numbers, like the type of person who buys something because it's $1.99, but they wouldn't buy it if the sticker price at $2. So we see the one and we make a very big deal out of that, but we don't actually dig at it to look at the data. I mean, I answered this person's question. I didn't feel like tweeting them because they don't actually read information or seek knowledge, but their question was, why do companies take these third-party exclusive deals? And I'm like, well, here's the reason. Because the game sold 1 million copies, the development costs were paid for upfront by Sony. The likely model, and you can go to GI Sprint and listen to Rami Ismail talk about, the kind of the typical structures of these deals. Likely model was that the development costs were paid for upfront. There was some amount of additional pay just provided off the top, right? Because most developers aren't going to just develop a game for you at cost. So a little cheddar on top of it for that, and then a royalty deal. So why did they take a third-party exclusive deal? Because it paid everybody's salary for the amount of time that they worked on the game. They had some additional, let's just call it 6 months worth of pocket money and walking around in cash thereafter. And they're off of 1 million sales. They're getting $16 million in royalties. That's why you take a third-party deal, because it pays people's salaries, because it supports profit, because it allows you to give your workers raises and bonuses. That's why you take a third-party exclusive deal.
Well, it's weird too. Real quick, Falky, I just want to say something, which, and I'll get my just one nugget here, and then I'll let you run with this, Falky. But what's weird is that this particular individual was like, "Oh, well, I guess these third-party deals aren't working," and I'm like, again, and I asked him, but based on what? Like, how are you arriving to that conclusion that third-party deals are not working? Because we continue seeing third-party deals being made for the reasons you just mentioned, Logic. So go ahead, Falky.
Yeah, I was just going to extend on Logic was just saying that, they take the deal, and more specifically for Shift Up, mobile game development costs are relatively low compared to console and PC. So they've got to use new technologies, new engines, new processors, new everything. We've seen time and time again that PlayStation offered all of this additional support for free as part of this deal. We say for free, rather, in air quotes, because it's part of the deal. Quality work, production assistance, oversight, governance, training support, the works, assisting with getting the console stuff sorted out, assisting with learning development techniques and all the rest of it. So not only is it a smart deal for them to take because it pays everyone's wages while they're developing this thing, keeps the lights on and keeps things going, and then they get a cut at the back end of it. The risk is then offloaded from the studio to the publisher, being PlayStation. So they've taken away that risk. If it sells 1 million copies, if it sells 10,000 copies, it doesn't worry Shift Up because that risk is no longer sitting with them. They've got the money to do the development, fully funded. That's tick the first box. They've got all this additional support to upskill and train their teams so that they can then work on the next one and the next one and the next one, regardless of whether it stays console exclusive or if it goes multi-platform. And I can't remember if it's been said that their next one is going to be multi-platform or not. I can't remember if it was. And then so they've got all that covered. Then they get the $15-16 million royalties paid back, and they will have had their next. That's either funding their next game's development, pre-development, or they sign another deal. And if PlayStation is happy enough with selling 1 million units for the 50 million that they paid for it, or whatever it worked out to be, $40 or $50 million investment, and they've sold 1 million units in 2 months. I'm pretty sure it was a $60 game, wasn't it? So they're already in front. 2 months after launch, they're in front, past break even. That's no different to what they did with in-house built $150 million Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. In fact, it probably works out to be a better and faster rate of return than Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. So these people that want to, again, I know I'm getting into a TED talk, but they want to go off and run around with all these numbers and they don't put it into context and they call it a flop. As soon as you put some pressure on them to explain why it's a flop, they go, it only sold 1 million units compared to Spider-Man 2 sold 10 million units or 12 million units from all this other stuff.
$70 game.
$70 game. So they're in front. PlayStation's in front. They've covered their risk. They've got their return on it. There's money going back to the studio. The studio's in very healthy shape, and there's a healthy working relationship there. And this is why I keep saying these partnerships are the best thing that Sony can do with PlayStation. Instead of spending $100, $150, $200 million to build a game in-house and then have to cover that massive corporate overhead, go and do a deal with someone like Shift Up. Cost you $40 or $50 million to get a game out there, and then within 2 months of release, you're making cash. And you're giving them something back to keep them interested in doing the next thing. And then their next idea might be the same deal, $40 or $50 million, or it'll be cheaper because now they know what they're doing with the technology and they've got the skill sets worked up. The next game could be $30 or $40 million if they start reusing assets. So look at Stellar Blade for $50 million compared to something that's cost them $200 million. Tell me, can you see the difference? Is it that starkingly obvious in terms of fidelity and all the rest of it? Like, you know, the carry on that some people have, it's just stupid. You know, everyone goes, oh, they've got to have first party or there's no point doing it. I'm like, fuck that. Do some more of these deals.
Exactly. And I would also add that, you know, people, they're ignoring the like there's levels to this. You know what I mean? Shout out to Doc Dark. There's levels to this. I mean, like, you know, you look at what's that game that came out on Game Pass? The one with the action figure shooter. No, the action figure game shooter.
Oh, I know what
they
Hypercharge.
Like, Hypercharge. Like they are over the moon. And they've sold, I think it was 300,000 or 500,000 copies or something like that. And they're over the moon. They're now, yeah. I mean, if you put that against, you know, like freaking Bethesda or something, and it's like giving a whale a tic tac, as they say. But if you look at how small the studio is, what the game costs to make, versus what they brought in. Like, and if you see the reaction of the actual studio, and they're saying, "Holy crap! Like, our game is a huge success. Thank you very much." That tells you something. And Shift Up is a bigger team, but again, first time making a game of this scale, mobile developer, and I mean, like, I look at this and I just see reflections. It's, a lot of this works the same way in the publishing industry. All the costs are, and then the extra money they got put in their pocket is in advance, and that advance goes against the costs and everything before they get royalties. So once they hit $0, meaning they break even, now they get royalties. So in the span of 2 months, they've managed to take whatever the cost is, $40-50 million, a $50 million game in the span of 2 months, break even. And now, after Sony taking whatever cut they take, they have they've reached just shy of $16 million in royalties that they've been paid. Like, that sounds like a tremendous success to me. And I've been hearing, I've been seeing people are saying that at this point it's getting closer to 2 million, but I mean, I haven't seen anything to confirm that. But like, I don't know, it's just anyway. that just sounds like a success to me. I mean, I'm really happy for the team. Mm-hmm. Not every team gets this.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I always say, like, we just need to have better conversations in the gaming space. And unfortunately, we just don't. Well, that's why people come here and listen to this podcast, because we do have those conversations. But in generally speaking, I just think we need to have better conversations. The gaming space, been saying that for quite some time now. And to see the conversation around, the discourse around someone's assumption about, how well a game should have done, or third-party deals not working out. Again, it just speaks to, like, those conversations should be focused on data, numbers, and not
BRAP, I'm sorry
sorry
to cut you off, BRAP. I just want to correct something. Yobo1245 just said that Hypercharge isn't on Game Pass. So if that's true, I just want to correct that, because I don't want to give out the wrong information. So I know it's exclusive to Xbox and PC, obviously.
Yeah, you said the action figure shooter game, and I was like, I knew which game that was. I wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I was the one that said it was on Game Pass. So I just wanted to correct that mistake real quick. So thanks, Yobo.
Yeah, but BRAP, they come here and listen because this is ESPN Sports Center, and those other things are your local hometown sports team radio show.
Yeah.
They may critique the hometown team, but they will always support the team. But when you just want to come here and listen to the data and listen to the stats and listen to the assessment of performance, you come to ESPN Sports Center. The 9 p.m. Wednesday night version.
Yes, and Thursday night, tomorrow night is Pardon the Interruption with Slow-Mo and
that's right. They're all part of the network. PTI Thursday nights over on the DPS channel.
Exactly. Big shout out to Forte and Slow-Mo.
It's a good listen, that one.
It always is. Yeah. It always is. Yeah. Kevin George wants to know, which one of you is Stephen A. Smith? I don't know.
Is that Forte? It might be Forte.
It's definitely not me.
Go ahead, Faki. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to. There's some really, really positive comments in the chat. And I think we're having a very productive conversation today without getting too far into it. The success of a game, like someone mentioned Steam earlier. I can't remember whose wallet's taken a hammering from Steam, but
that would be Ramon and a lot of Steam users tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think about the statistics of how, again, we get oversaturation of games coming out, and trying to make something appealing or stand out in this current market environment. You can see all the tier 2 publishers are starting to pull back on quantity and go to quality, because the indies and the AA's and the smaller studios are just powering out so much content. And again, big shout out to the indies. There's some absolute cracking games coming that have already come out this year, and some that are yet to launch. And if I had an argument with someone in Twitter, but if anyone says that gaming is boring and there's not enough content, it's too dry, and all the rest of it, because all they want to do is look at two specific titles between Xbox and PlayStation, you are missing out on so much good, fun gaming experiences because you just do not give indies the quality, the credit, and the time of day. So I highly encourage everybody to go and suss out what's happening in the indie scene and the smaller AA startup studios, because they are kicking it out of the park at the moment. Now, having put that plug across there, with regards to Steam, there's some stats came out in the last couple of months that only the top 100 games on Steam actually sell more than 100,000 copies. Most publishers don't even make money off putting games on Steam because there's so much content there and it gets lost. And it's only the top 20 or top 30 something titles on Steam that actually generate 70 or 80% of the revenue. Logic will be able to correct me on those more generalization assumptions because he's got the data a bit more down pat than I do. But if that's the kind of mix that we're looking at, if a game's launched on a console and sold 1 million copies in 2 months, that should be somewhere in the top 40 games for the year, I would think, in terms of units sold. And obviously the top 10 will just be the same top 10 we've always had. But think about the successes that have been coming through from non-first party studios, particularly with PlayStation this year. Xbox has not had as many. And Nintendo's business model relies heavily on its first party stuff anyway. But they had Rise of the Ronin, not a first party. They had Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, again, not a first party, but exclusive on the console. They've had Helldivers 2, massive success. They've had Stellar Blade do over 1 million units in a couple of months. Again, highly rated, great success. The final shape for Destiny 2, absolutely smashed it out of the park. And then you've got Dawn Trails coming. You've got a heap of stuff coming the back end of this year. I don't see why we would be worried about a game selling 1 million units not being considered successful, particularly when there's such a clustered window around game launches that are getting the focus at the moment. I think I ran it out. I was giving somebody a hard time on Twitter again. There's nearly one major release per month for the whole year this year on a PlayStation. And they've done, since they launched Spider-Man 2 last year, and then looking into March 2025, there'll only be 2 months where they haven't had a major release on the console. That's like 18 months straight of banger after banger after banger after banger, and that's not including the major third parties or any of the sports titles or any of the other cross-platforms that always come out. Calling something that sold 1 million units in that kind of environment when 5 or 6 years ago that would have been top 10 selling for the year, they're kidding themselves. They need to wake up, roll over, and change hands, honestly.
And you just reminded me of something too. Number one, like regardless of how much marketing they got, being able to rise above a sea of quality content and hit that kind of a milestone on your first go at AAA, and your first being new to the scene, relatively speaking, is just absolutely incredible. And this is in a point where, quite frankly, I'm starting to get nervous because, I mean, I've been joking around, and, me and some of our friends, we all joke around about too many games, but we are literally simultaneously in a golden age of gaming and also in an age of too many games. And it's not like it's like for every 20 games that come out, two or three of them are good. For every 20 games that come out, we could say anywhere from 7 to 10 of them are good. Like there's a lot of really good games coming out from indie to AA to AAA. And you see excellent games that just aren't getting traction, and then the studio ends up having to, either slim down or, in some extreme cases maybe shut down. It's because it's not the content. It's not that nobody's buying. It's just there's not enough of us, and there's not enough of us, we don't have enough money to keep up with it. And even for those of us who do have enough money to keep up with it, we don't have enough time to keep up with it. So, I mean, for all of those conditions, for them to come out with 1 million sales is just like, I don't know. Amazing.
Is it? And I'll cap off with just one last comment, and then I promise I'll be quiet. It's the supply and demand perspective that we've got a massive oversupply of games in the market. Now that can go one of two ways. It can cause studios to fold because they can't sell enough, or it can cause what we're currently seeing now is the major guys to really focus on their costs of getting something to market, and it may actually force games to become cheaper because of the oversupply and the quality of oversupply that's coming from the bottom end. So if and it's the same in any other free market, he says in inverted commas.
You don't say, Falky, that the gaming industry. Never mind. I'm not going to go that soapbox, but go ahead.
If there's a massive oversupply of quality games, and then all of a sudden you don't sell 10 million because it's just too packed, and people can get other stuff to play for slightly cheaper or much cheaper. Then the norm is $70 games aren't sustainable because we just can't sell enough of them, or maybe we have to sell them at $60 or $50, or we got to find a way of making the same game cheaper or a better game cheaper, and we rework our studio model and we start selling them at $40 or $50. It seems pretty clear that the PlayStation Live service model is going to be a $40 game, and you buy the game and you get all this extra stuff, and then you can buy additional bits and pieces as you go along if you want, or you can just grind them out. Now we'll see what happens with Concord, and we'll see what happens with their games. But hey, if it's not free to play, and you've got to pay a cent for every, or cents and dollars for every little thing in it, but you get a base game for $40 and then off you go, that's not a bad deal, is it? Or big AAA games may not be $70 in the near future because they just can't get people to buy them because there's other options that are cheaper. It might be more of these Stellar Blade, Rise of the Ronin type deals where they can, and as I said, this is what they're pursuing it because they see the value there. The publishers and the studios see value in investing in these games that are cheaper to build because the build risk is not on the publisher. The publisher's taking the sales risk. But they can then offer them out to the market, not at $70. They can get them down to $60, or they can get them down to $50. And that may be how we actually see the change that we've been screaming for the last 5, 6, 7 years, where instead of it just being an encroach of stupid costs to continue this hobby, the market itself, through oversaturation, may actually right its pricing point. Now, that's drawing a bit of a bow, but it's happened in other areas.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a great point, Fucky. Yeah.
Really quick, I wanted to add I guess what was going through my mind. I admire your knowledge of the numbers. I wish I knew them half as well as you. But I did want to mention that I guess the reason why I'm always rooting for this IP is because of one of the lead. The man in charge of making Stellar Blade, I had known him as being a character designer for a PlayStation 2 JRPG called Magna Carta, and they kind of had disappeared after the 360 exclusive had come out. And then of course you see him make a separate gacha game called Nikke, which is really just like a very simple cover. It's not even, I wouldn't even call it a cover-based shooter. It's just a regular gacha game. And I don't like gacha games. I guess what I'm trying to describe is they made the journey from, or somebody like him made the journey from being almost forgotten in the gaming space to making a gacha game, which I don't like, and then to finally enter what might be the top, 40 games that sold this year. And we have to celebrate that because maybe they wouldn't have had this opportunity if it wasn't for PlayStation, or if it wasn't for just the marketing push that Project Eve got when it was first shown. So, it's nice to see a turnaround and to make something at least that I think caters to most of us here, the style of game.
I think Shuhei Yoshida gets not enough credit for the work that he does, and then Sean Benson and her team for the work that they do in identifying this stuff. But I take it right back to when Jim Ryan took over, and I've got a lot of time for Jim. I think he did an excellent job in the circumstances he had. There's two critiques that I do offer against things he should have done, but he didn't. But I'll leave them for another conversation. One of the best things he did was within the first couple of days, and Shuhei's spoken about this on a number of interviews, and Jim Ryan's said this almost exactly the same thing. Jim Ryan asked Shuhei Yoshida into the offices at Tokyo and sat him down and said, "What do you want to do?" And Shuhei just basically said, oh, "Whatever I'll do whatever you want me to do." And he goes, "No, what do you want to do?" And he goes, "I love indies, I love games, I just want to go and find indie games." And Jim Ryan said, "Here's a blank checkbook. You put the team together yourself, and that's what you do." And ever since the week that Jim Ryan took over as the boss, Shuhei Yoshida has had carte blanche, freedom to go and find games. Just go and talk to developers, go and find games, go indies, go to conventions, go everywhere, talk to anyone, offer them whatever they need. Go out there and be friendly towards them, and go out there and get those games. Make sure they're on our platform. They don't have to be exclusive, just make sure they're on our platform. And look what we've gotten. Look what we continue to get as PlayStation, if you're a PlayStation gamer. But some of these studios are doing multi-plat, and it's through the support from Sony. Nintendo's not doing this anywhere near as much as what Sony is, but they're starting to convert over to this business model. Massive props to Shuhei and Sean Benson. They are doing an amazing job of finding these gems for us and bringing some magic back into gaming for us.
That's a great.
I second.
Great
I second that.
Yeah. Let me grab this super chat here by Yobo1245. Another $5 super chat. Thank you for that super chat again. Yobo says, most tiresome rhetoric is the attachment rate one. Same people will say Spider-Man is 2, 10 plus million figure. Is it adequate because there's 60 million PS5s? Yeah, that tends to be one of those ones that people use quite a bit to downplay the success of a game, a successful video game. So, but I do want to go to speaking of video games. And Logic, I want to thank you for pointing this out because I missed this, and this is actually one of the games I'm looking forward to. There was a podcast, Xbox podcast on Indiana Jones, the upcoming Indiana Jones game that's coming out. The Great, what's it called? Oh, Indiana Jones: The Great Circle. I almost forgot the name of the game. And they interviewed the Machine Games game director. I forget his name here. Is it? Sorry. They Jörg Gustafsson, and he's the game director, and John Jennings, who's the production director. You know what I didn't know, guys? I didn't know that Troy Baker's actually the voice of Indiana Jones. Did you guys know that?
No.
I think
that's actually the first time I'm hearing this.
I think you did know that, Brap. I think you just forgot.
Did I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've had that discussion before and mentioned it on the podcast.
I'm telling you, Logic. I swear I'm not. It doesn't even ring a bell. Because I read this article on the Xbox Wire, because you can find it on the Xbox Wire too. But I was like, Troy Baker, really? I mean,
yeah, because
I got commentary on that.
Okay,
because Ramon, weren't you? I want to say, was it Ramon on the show one time when we talked about? Because I had mentioned the things that I was, that were kind of foremost in my mind about what I wanted to make sure Indiana Jones was not. Which shout out to this podcast, because this is once again another example of I swear these guys must have listened to that episode, because literally when you go down that podcast, he ticks off almost verbatim like the things I was concerned about that I said I wanted to make sure that this was not what the game was, and he actually addressed every single one of those almost. But I think in the wake of maybe the first trailer or when the first information came out, I want to say Ramon was on the show, and we had this discussion about what an Indiana Jones game should be, and I think Ramon, because have you met Troy Baker or been on a job with him at some point?
That would be nice, but unfortunately, I have not.
Okay. Yeah.
I do remember that conversation because we were talking about what it should be, and one of the things that sticks most in my mind is I was saying what I hope it would not be, and I started describing Uncharted. And I was saying, I really hope they don't go down that road because we already have an Uncharted. And someone in the chat immediately said, "Oh, he wants it to be like Uncharted." And I'm like, okay, we have a listening comprehension problem. So that's how I remember we had that conversation.
Are you surprised by that?
But man, Troy Baker, I don't know how many people like. I'm sure everybody here on the panel, but I'm in the chat, if you've ever heard of imposter syndrome, like Troy Baker is one of the actors that gives me imposter syndrome because, like, I use an example. So back in some years back, I was in an acting class, and there was a guy who was in class, and he had it was my first year, and he'd been doing it for several years. And he's from your neck of the woods, David. He's from Australia. And I came into the class while he was doing a scene. I had no idea he was Australian because he was doing an American accent, and he had me fooled. And then when he started talking regular, when he sat down next to me, I'm like, oh, So, and then I remember the teacher kept, she kept on him, and she's like, okay, good, but blah, blah. She kept tweaking him, and she's like, okay, do it in the way you normally talk. And his performance was even better. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because when acting while putting on an accent puts another layer on top of it, that another layer of skill onto the performance that really takes training and getting used to. Now, Troy Baker is acting with a different type of accent. He is forming his voice to match someone else's voice, which is difficult to do. I mean, unless you have a voice that's already similar. But we've seen Troy Baker do so many different types of voices. He just has that magic. So he's already doing that. And then he's also speaking in the cadence, in the manner that Harrison Ford speaks. I can make my voice I can do Piccolo. I could stand here right now and I can do Piccolo's voice, but do I have the cadence right? You know what I mean? So you have to get the actual cadence of the way someone speaks. And he's doing all of that, and he's doing the mocap. And not only is he doing the mocap, but he's doing it moving the way Harrison Ford moves when he was doing when he was in the Indiana Jones movies. So that's a lot of layers onto a performance that Troy Baker is like. that's just a lot of layers. Like, when I found that out, and then I read that he was actually doing the mocap while doing the voice and everything else. Like, I'm just flabbergasted. Like, it's amazing, just amazing.
Right. I love hearing that kind of perspective, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. People keep forgetting that Troy Baker did voice the Joker in that non-Rocksteady Arkham game. Was it Arkham Origins? Batman Arkham Origins?
Yeah, he did Joker, right?
Yeah, he did Joker in that one. And
he did a great job.
He's very versatile. Very versatile voice actor, and probably doesn't get enough credit outside of gaming for his voice acting capabilities. But
you're absolutely right. Like, personal experience, and I'm sorry. I just got to get this out before I forget. I got an audition once for an Ice Age, and I had to. They couldn't get Joe Leguizamo back, so in addition to a bunch of other roles, they were like, try to do this character, and I'm listening to this, and it's freaking Joe Leguizamo. Like, I've got some years of training, but this is Joe Leguizamo. Like, I did my best, and then the feedback I got was really good, but it's like, I don't think people really realize how easy these guys make it. It's basically like watching Michael Jordan jump from the free throw line, and he just makes it look like he just jumps, and he makes it look like you can do it. He's like, oh, he just jumps. Like, they make it look easy, but it is not easy. So, I mean, my hat's off to him.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, he's doing like the everything. Like, he's doing, and they say they mention this in the podcast too, that he's he's full performance. He's motion, mocap, body, face, everything. Like he's doing all the physical acting, and that's just incredible. That's incredible. And I think Ramon, I think it was you who said earlier you didn't want this to be an Uncharted game. And one of the other takeaways, I'm just from the article. I didn't listen to the actual podcast. I'm at the actual article on the Xbox Wire website. They took a lot of time in watching. They spent countless hours rewatching the films. They said especially the two movies that are closest to the game, which are Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. And
not just the films, but they also mentioned that they watched tons of footage. I mean, they were given access to the vault, so they watched tons of footage that had never been released in any of the movies.
And I wonder if they. I'm sorry.
Oh no, real quick, Ramon, and on top of that, they have they're working with together with Lucasfilm Games on this as well. So, but go ahead, Ramon.
I was gonna say, I wonder if they got access to the ranch because a colleague, well, I shouldn't call him a colleague, more of a mentor, who wrote a bunch of Star Wars books. He described his experience when he first got a Star Wars contract, and they invited him out to the ranch, and he's going through the Star Wars vault. Like, I mean, he's just,
so he's talking
Skywalker
about how ranch.
He got to go to Skywalker Ranch, and he's just talking about all of the stuff there, and he's going through all this material and yada yada yada, and he's just like all of the stuff that we never saw, that we'll never see. And just like, I wonder if they got to do that, because that just sounds like it would be a dream come true. But I mean, we haven't played the game yet, but just from the trailer, it really looks like they have captured Indiana Jones in a way that the films haven't done for the past two films, which is ironic because I feel the same way about the last two Star Wars Jedi games. Like, those two games have captured the story, in my personal opinion, better than the last couple of movies.
Yeah, and to your point, Logic, about them getting access to the vault, the archives. I think, like, for me, when they first showed Indiana Jones, I was like, oh God, I hope this is like, I hope they do the game, they do the franchise justice. And as I was reading the article, like, one of the biggest takeaways for me was that there's a lot of love, a lot of work that's going into making this game. And like, I grew up watching Indiana Jones. There's a lot of nostalgia here for me. I'm a big fan of the franchise. But just reading a lot of this stuff, a lot of the work that they're putting into this, a lot of the research, Troy Baker doing a great impression of Harrison Ford, not just voice acting, but nailing down his mannerisms, Indiana Jones mannerisms. After reading this article, I'm even more excited for this game. I'm more excited for it. So, obviously we haven't, we won't know how the game truly turns out, but I like the work. It was great seeing, again, the care and time that they're putting into this game. And I hope this turns out to be a really good game. So,
yeah, I'm both, man, I am both elated at the notion of its potential, and then also just because, I mean, what they have painted is exactly what, like, Ramon and I talked about, like, what I felt that game should be. But I go back to the showcase, right, and that sequence in that scene, right, where he and the German almost go over the edge, but they wind up sending the henchmen over the edge and both, like, staying up on the ship. It's just like a classic thing from the movies, and I'm like, how in the hell do they pull that off? Like, is that, like, how scripted is that? And how many of those, like, iconic Indiana Jones movies or Indiana Jones moments are going to be canned, and what is their ability to nail that like throughout the length of the game? Like that works like if the timing is like crackerjack perfect, right? And they manage that whole thing that you and I talked about, like with Hellblade 2, right? How often and how frequently do you take the controller out of the gamer's hands? And what is the get out of it? Like when you take the controller out of my hand and the get right that I'm receiving from it isn't impactful and worth it, then I get angry. But if you take the controller out of my hand to give me a moment like that in Indiana Jones moment, that's worth it. But like that pacing and that timing of like you taking the controller and giving it back, like it's got I hope that they nail it.
Laji, you were botting out there a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we should just go on.
I heard you say. I think the last thing you were saying is, "I hope they nail it." Right.
I want to add to Logic's point as well, real quick. Try not to be a motor mouth. I'm wondering if they were able to do the same thing in the studio that happens on a film set, because a lot of the moments in Indiana Jones, like any other film or TV show or anything, some of those moments are organic that weren't written in, and they happened in the moment. It might happen in the moment where literally during the shoot, the actor does something completely different, and then the supporting actors just go with it. And that's that's like veterans at work right there. And a lot of times the actor will be like, I feel like he wouldn't do this because blah 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 blah, and the director's like, you know what, you're right. And then they'll call the script person over, and the script person, they'll be like, they'll listen in, and it'll be like a three-way collaboration, and the script person's like, okay, and then they'll make some changes to the dialogue or what have you. An example of that is Raiders of the Lost Ark, when the guy pulls out his, I don't remember if it was a shamshir or what kind of sword it was, but he pulls it out, and he trained for like months for this big moment in this, because it was supposed to be a big fight scene with Indiana Jones. And so this guy trained for it. His family was watching and everything. And then, but when they were getting ready to do the scene, Harrison Ford is like, that just doesn't seem right. Like, Indiana Jones wouldn't do that. He'd pull out his gun and shoot him. And that's what we saw. And of course, that it was perfect, but the guy is just like, he trained for this fight scene, and, he literally just gets shot. But things like that happen on the set. So like all those moments that Logic was talking about, like a lot of that stuff is organic. So hopefully, you get that same kind of collaboration in the studio as in the movies, because that's where that kind of, for quote unquote magic kind of comes from.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I do want to move on from Indiana Jones. We have some news that Power World may be coming to the PlayStation 5. Well, one of the biggest games of 2024. I'm not really looking forward to Power World. Or playing Power
Slave
World.
Simulator? Yeah,
in general. So, what'd you say?
Slave Simulator.
You say Play Simulator or Blade Simulator?
No, I said Slave Simulator.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dog fighting and Slave Simulator. Yeah. Let me stop.
Make it look like a cute and cuddly animal, you can get away with anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
But let me pull my stick out of the mud here. I'll stop.
All right.
So that one of the biggest games in terms of player counts.
Yes.
What did they end up achieving? 7, 8, 9 million?
I don't know.
Can't remember now. I don't think it cracked the 10 million mark, did it? Let me consult Google, who knows everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I stopped following the game after, it was like one of those, after it came out of left field and became a big hit. So yeah, I really haven't been following Power World at all since its release.
15 million units as of February 2024. Game has sold 15 million units at $30 US. So what's that? 15 million at 30 is 450 million.
Something like that.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't hate on that.
No.
Yeah, I can.
One thing I've noticed is, I'm always listening to Japanese social media, and I don't see that game advertised at all, which I find very, very interesting. But despite that, they've done well everywhere else in the world. So, I mean, I think they were doing well in Japan. I just noticed that I don't see much marketing for it. It just completely took the world by storm, and I wish Nintendo and Game Freak would take note, and maybe we could see something that looks more impressive, I think, from a production standpoint, because I think their games are good as of late, but I just feel like I want to see a little bit different in the production department. Doesn't need to look like a movie, but I don't know. I always felt like there's something missing when I'm looking at some of their more recent games.
You know what I'd like to see is, and maybe this is where I get called a Mary Sue, but I would love to see something like the impression I get from Creatures of Ava, where she is working with the animals to overcome obstacles, puzzles, things like that. And I know I'm taking this a little seriously, but I look at Power World where you go and beat down an animal and then you catch them, and then, you know what I mean? It's just and then you force them to fight each other. And Pokemon, they're forcing them to fight each other and everything. And I know it's all it's cute, cuddly, blah 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 blah. I'm not trying to get on the soapbox, but I would love to see some more games like Creatures of Ava that kind of take the whole working with creatures and change it into something where they're they're working with you, But I'll step down off my little Mary Sue soapbox.
It's just one of those. It would be interesting to see if it does make it on PlayStation, how it plays and what comes about from it, and how much it gets a kick from. I am still surprised that Nintendo hasn't waved its big legal wand at them, but 450 million in sales to the end of February, could probably be over 500 million by now. That's not chump change. And I've got a knowledge, admitted it's not extensive knowledge, but knowledge about how the legal system works in Japan. If they're going to sue them in their home country, or if they're going to sue them in Japan, they'd probably take a fair whack of that revenue in-house, but I'm surprised they haven't even sent a cease and desist. So it's an interesting
Definitely
one.
Expecting they were going to do that,
especially because they made a statement. They made a statement right when the game first blew up, as in they knew that they needed to take action, but we haven't heard anything. So I find that
and that I also find it interesting that with how closely Nintendo and PlayStation are working with each other at the moment, particularly with the Japanese publishing, the big six Japanese publishers, and in more extended circumstances, that if Power World are going to publish it on PlayStation, if PlayStation's offering any assistance there or not, because I imagine that if there's going to be any kind of claim against the revenue generated from that game, they haven't done it yet. They'll probably wait until they see how good it does on PlayStation. Because if that kicks another couple $100 million into the kitty, we're getting closer to this $750 million, and then Nintendo's just, if they wheel the stick out, then it could be an absolute bloodbath. But it's just interesting that they made a statement and they've done nothing since.
I even forgot about the statement. Anyway. I forgot they even made a statement.
Innate in the chat says that Pokemon Company made a statement, not Nintendo.
Yeah, it was Pokemon Company.
Brad, but you also forgot Troy Baker was voicing Indiana Jones.
That's true. You're not wrong.
Thank you, Innate.
BRAP can't remember what he had for breakfast. We've been a bit harsh on him.
No, I had coffee. That I can remember. That's all I had for breakfast.
What, proper coffee or that weak, dark, watery stuff you Americans call coffee?
Ah,
Wow.
Wow. Sir, my coffee comes from Colombia.
Oh, all right.
And
Well,
it's
don't
dark.
say anything more. You might get incriminated.
No, it's dark. It's actually coffee, not the other stuff. Anyhow. Oh man, wow. I gotta go either way. Anyhow, I do want to move on to we have some news related to Apple's AAA push in with Assassin's Creed and Resident Evil and the Death Stranding ports to iPhone. Apparently, these games aren't selling well.
I can't believe it.
What's that?
I said I can't believe it.
Yeah. So, Mobile Gamer is reporting, based on estimates from data firms, AppFigures and AppMagic, that Assassin's Creed Mirage has secured between 123,000 to 279,000 free downloads since its mobile launch on June 6th, but only between 3,000 to around 5,700 people have actually paid the premium $50 fee to unlock the full game. In comparison, the free-to-play Assassin's Creed Rebellion was downloaded 1.9 million times in the same period and also had stronger legs after its initial launch weeks. Estimated numbers for Death Stranding and Resident Evil aren't much better. After 6 months, about 7,000 players purportedly paid the full $30 price tag for Resident Evil 4, while Resident Evil Village tripped even harder with around 5,750 people paying for the game's $16 full unlock. Death Stranding, sitting at for a cost of $20, recorded 10,600 downloads since its own launch 6 months ago. By the way, this is per Games Radar. They're reporting on these games. So, Logic, I'm going to go to you on this one, sir, because we've heard for a long time, if you bring the AAA games to mobile, you'll expand the market, yada yada yada. Bring the games. You know, we've all heard these assumptions of things that would happen as these AAA experiences go to mobile devices, and that's not happening here. So, what say you, good sir?
We'll just say I told you so. And chat, let me know if I start dropping out or again. Let's just quickly kind of go over all the things that I've been saying for the last 6 months since this whole narrative started. And you can go back and you can check talking about games, my podcast on rounding off infinity. You can go back and look at my Twitter posts. I mean, I've covered all this stuff before. And what I've said is, number one, these games of this style, so AAA console type gaming experiences, have been available on mobile devices for years. It's not new. What was it? Infinity Blade was the first big one that Epic did on the iPad in 2007. Mirror's Edge is on the iPad. Civilization is on the iPad. All the Final Fantasy games, people wail and gnashing of teeth about the before. There's Xbox Cloud Gaming that people can utilize to get those games on a pane of glass. And crap, I'm dropping out again. Go ahead, BRAP. Go to somebody else.
Yeah. If anyone wants to chime in, Falky, Ramon, or Kofi, go ahead.
Well, from a non-technical, no, go ahead, Falky, because you have more technical knowledge.
I don't know about technical knowledge.
But you can speak to the business. I mean, this is. I meant
the business side of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, it's a test. They had to test it, right? At some point, they had to test it to see whether there's a viable market for console-style games to be pushed out onto these other mediums. Because the transition back the other ways.
Let me interject real quick. But the problem is, and I understand what you're saying, they had to test it. The problem is that people were making the assertion that basically that this was kind of a slam dunk.
Yeah, right. And the same people making that slam dunk assertion are doing what? Sitting in their basements, fucking broke, doing nothing. You know,
Maybe drinking Mountain Dew, possibly.
No, I shouldn't cast those kinds of assertions, but you know, if you're so slam dunk sure about something, might I remind you that a certain Michael Pachter actually reversed 20 years of his comments around consoles are dead, consoles are dead, consoles are dead, and then all of a sudden it's, oh no, consoles have got a long future. So, yeah, slam dunks my ass. They had to test it because taking console games to mobile and tablet and whatnot and through Apple had to be tested because games coming back the other way were doing well coming back to console. So, you know, we get Fantasia is coming to console. Freaking great. That thing's got some awesome people who, and I've played some of it on a tablet. That game is going to do really well on a console. I just hope that it gets to focus on it so people can play it. Because using a controller to play it's going to be brilliant. But again, that was been locked in the Apple Arcade for years, and now it's coming out. We've had mobile games come to consoles, so like the Genshin Mohio Studios, so Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and all these other ones. They come from mobile to console and PC, and they do really well. But no one had properly tested going back the other way. There'd been some small games that had gone, you know, PC and mobile and all the rest of it, and it not really got the draw power. Some of these studios, again, because the growth is stagnant, doesn't mean that it's going backwards, but the growth in the gaming industry in terms of revenue is stagnant, so they've got to find taking games to other places, and we've covered this ad nauseum. So you got to find a new way of doing something, and no one knows it's going to work or not, because you can survey people to the end of the earth, and they'll give you words. Words are cheap. They've got to reach into their pocket. That's when, you know, the metal hits the meat, and that's when we find out what's actually going to happen. So they've tested it with a couple of different games from studios or creators who were prepared to take that step, and it wasn't too big a step from a technical porting standpoint. What we found is there's an appetite there that people may play it, but they're not going to pay for it because a mobile game is conditioned to get everything for free or for a couple of dollars, and they don't want to fork out big dollars, and they don't want games that take a long time to go from point to point to point to point. But I would be very curious to know how many of those games that have been paid full price and how many of them were picked up and used were actually from people who've already played it somewhere else, and how many were new. Because I imagine, without seeing the data, that more than 70% would have been people who already knew about that game or have played that game. I would be very surprised if more than 1/3, say 30%, of people who've picked it up, played it, and stuck with it and then paid for it actually had no clue about that game to begin with.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just feel like people are not going to be holding their phones asking for that port and getting really excited, or, you know, getting new adopters. There's just no sense of community there that's strong enough.
Yeah, I mean,
enough.
Yeah, and again, I you know, it's interesting. Logic, I don't know if you're back. If you
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Logic.
Yeah, like I said, if I start botting and dropping out again, chat, just let me know. So I think the big thing, and I mean, I heard some of the comments that other people made that covered probably a lot of the stuff that I would have said. I think the big thing in this is a lot of it comes from the corner that is trying to validate the Xbox strategy, the insistence that every game, every screen is an Xbox. And I said this before Sean Layden said it, but he's said it multiple times now, and, you know, corroborates that perspective, which is that the world has had access to Fortnite. They've had access to Call of Duty. They've had access to Halo. They've had access to these things via multiple channels. And the world has said that they don't want to play those games, meaning the people who have not onboarded to those games had methods to get to them and have chosen not to. A large part of the 3 billion people that Satya Nadella wants to access, when you look at a large part of that is going to be obtained through tackling the Asian problem, tackling the Latin American problem, and tackling, at a smaller number, the European problem. You don't need to figure out the US problem because you already have that. Quite frankly, to a certain extent, you don't really need to figure out the Chinese problem because you've either figured that out or you figured that you can't get to it, and Tencent's got that, and you need to not worry about it. But Asia, Latin America, and Europe, those 3 global regions have had access to these games via some methodology or another. And they've said the people who want to play those are already playing them. If you're trying to tap the 3 billion people that you have not captured yet, you can't do it with the same content that you already have.
Yeah.
Logic, are you done speaking? I don't know if you're done or we lost you again. I think we lost him. Logic, you back? All right, he may have dropped. Like my takeaway too, Falky, is that kind of to what Logic's saying is that, you know, and if just going back to the article, they talked about like the Assassin's Creed Rebellion, which is the free to play version, mobile version of the game. That game gets downloaded 1.9 million times in the same period as the Assassin's Creed Mirage. And so what that tells me is that consumer base consumes games differently than the traditional console games or the console ports of, you know, Death Stranding and Assassin's Creed Mirage. Like, those consumers want different types of experiences. They're going to consume differently. And look, mobile games, a lot of them are free to play, are cheap games, especially on the Apple side of things, mobile in general, I should say. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so like, it's a different consumer, and that's what I'm saying. Like everyone's like making this argument that you're going to reach all of these billions of players by making every screen have access to AAA games. And that's not necessarily the case. Yep. And I'm not saying that no one's going to play their games on AAA games on a mobile device, but the majority probably aren't, because it's a different type of consumer, has a different appetite, wants to spend, you know,
and the
doesn't
game,
want to spend. Yeah, go ahead.
The game is different too. So a console game, you can build a game start to finish, put everything that you want into it, and you put it up for sale. And that's different to a subscription service game, which needs to be shorter, more targeted, and you've got to have less cost inputs so that you can actually make something out of it. But you've got to appeal to the short-term playing process, because people will have other games right there to pick from if they get bored of playing this. So the gameplay loop is shorter, the time to the total game ending is shorter, and you've got games like, like you say, Fortnite and Warzone and some of the other ones, which are, and the sporting games have all got the same thing. They're short match type games. You're in, you're matched up, you're done in 15, 20 minutes, you can go again, you can go again, you can go again, and you can pretty them up because it personalizes you as a gaming point. That's just on console. You go to PC, and they're totally different style of game development and what's in those games. And then you go and look at what's happening in other areas. When you get to mobile, a mobile game is built on a very, very short, simplistic, single or 2-point input, where it's a tap or a drag or something or a hold, and every 30 seconds there's an ad, and every 30 seconds there's an ad, and every 30 seconds there's an ad, and every time you finish a level there's 2 ads. If you want additional power-ups, watch this ad. If you want additional stuff, you can buy it or watch this ad. That's the model. How do you take Assassin's Creed and cram it full of ads every 30 seconds? You can't, when it's a 45 to 60 second movement from point A to point B to the next point of interjection. Either it's an action or it's a communication or whatever it is. It doesn't work. So a AAA game, to be developed to turn into a mobile style game, it's very unlikely to ever actually get one that will do it, because you've got to have such short point to point inflections, and then you've got to figure out how you're going to load it up with advertising, because that's how mobile games make their money. It's powered full of advertising, and they don't care if you don't pay nothing for it, because they get money out of the adverts. But going the other way, you can take a mobile game that's got a decent gameplay loop in it, like Genshin Impact, for example, bring it back the other way, strip all the ads out of it. You can still make it free to play because you can buy your skins and all the rest of it, but that's the only way you can then get stuff, is you have to buy it, or you've got to grind the shit out of it. And let's not forget, mobile games with their grind point, it'll get to a point where you just, they'll force you to buy stuff to progress. And no one in AAA gaming or console gaming wants that. That is genuine pay to win, and we hate that with a passion, and we have for forever. But casual mobile gamers don't care. They'll play it till they can't advance anymore, and then they'll go do something else, or they'll go back and start again, or they'll refresh the game and do something else. It's just chalk and cheese, and that's why we have market segments across different types of consumers, and it happens in every market. I don't know why people are so surprised with this shit. Anyway, I gotta head off for a meeting, and I'm gonna have to run off on that one. Apologies if anyone has a right of reply that they'd like to give, but yeah, I got to scoot. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me gate crash. Great to chat to you lads again. Kofi, Ramon, keep safe. BRAP, enjoy. And when you guys get to Thursday, enjoy the day.
Be a
Thank you, Falky. Appreciate you joining us, man. Pleasure always. Thank you, sir.
No worries. See ya.
All right, I did hear from Game Logic. Game Logic is having issues with Discord, so he is going to drop. So sorry, Hamp, about the issues, man. The Discord just sucks sometimes. So thank you, Logic, for joining us again this evening. Again, unfortunately, he won't be coming back because of issues with Discord on his end. Bo,
it's a pleasure, Logic. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do want to get to the last topic here. Look, I don't even know where to begin. I will say this. Unfortunately, this needs to be said. This should be. Frankly, this shouldn't be. This shouldn't be something that needs to be said. That's probably the better way to open this particular segment of the show up. But if you're an adult, you should not be having inappropriate conversations with minors. Period. And so we now have an update. We now know why Twitch let go Dr. Disrespect. And what's really kind of interesting, or what's a bit puzzling to me, is that I was reading people saying things, well, innocent until proven guilty, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You guys are, at least in my opinion, at least from what I've read, and in my opinion, my interpretation of that was that they were trying to defend him in a way that I thought was odd, weird. Some of the responses were definitely inappropriate in his defense. But I think that if we go back to the whole Twitch thing, I mean, think about this for a second. Like we all know that Twitch, who owns Twitch? Amazon does, right?
Yeah.
Amazon is a publicly traded company.
Yep.
What are publicly traded companies like? What are they like? They like money.
Constant
smooth
profit.
Operations. Yeah.
Constant profit. Even
profit.
unsustainably constant profit.
Yeah. They want money. They want money. And how does Twitch make money? How does Twitch make money? A lot of
it with the homes that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean they make money off of content creators that drive large audience, drive engagement to the platform. Okay. And so when I'm seeing and I'm reading people defend him or suggest we wait for evidence, I'm like, you know what, guys? Like at the bare bones minimum, you should suspect that something bad took place because of the fact that he's one of the larger content creators on Twitch. He got let go.
That's what made me raise an eyebrow.
Yeah, because, me too, Ramon.
I mean, like we were talking about before the show, like, I've never been, a fan or anything like that. And, I don't consume his material. So at first I was like, okay, this is one of the worst. This number's very high and one of the worst accusations that can be levied against a person. So I'm going to sit back and see what happens because I haven't, seen any, smoking guns or anything like that. But then when the news came that Twitch dropped him, I was like, okay, that's bad. Because just like what you just said, like he is, I don't know where he ranks, but I'm sure he ranks like near the top of their earners. And if they were willing to cut ties with him, then that's when I was like, okay, this is looking really bad. And then, when he issued his statement and then, kind of tried to dress it up, there nothing illegal happened. We had conversations that leaned into the inappropriate. It's like, so first of all, I'm not saying like like, if we just for a second slide aside all the other stuff, I'm sitting here okay, I'm 48 years old. I'm trying to think of what extended conversation I could have with an 18-year-old, let alone like however old this child was. Like, what things can you talk about? How's school going? You know what I mean? Like, how was the lunch your mom packed for you? Like, there are common interests that any age group can share to a point, but in a DM, like, I don't even know if I'd feel comfortable having a DM conversation with a minor, like someone of an inappropriate age, and then having it lean into the inappropriate, like, man, I can taste bile just like saying that. Having a conversation with a minor that leans into the inappropriate.
Well, he
Yeah.
based, and I go ahead, Kofi, before I read his.
Really quick, before you bring up more of the results, I had to go back and look at the 2020 video and just kind of break down his reaction. I remember him pulling out his phone, kind of processing it, still reacting to comments, and then having kind of like a down, like he slouched. And I remember being that, just like Ramon, I really never watch his videos. He does, he plays games I just don't really care about, but I was on the edge of my seat to see if anything would leak about why that all happened. It just was weird, right? For a whole week, we knew that he had gotten, banned or removed, but we thought, well, maybe Twitch is fumbling, because Twitch isn't perfect either, right? They've had like a lot of weird rule changes and people complaining that they haven't handled things right. So I was like, well, I'm sure in a month's time we're going to find out everything. And then it didn't happen, right? We didn't hear who was, at least I don't remember any of the allegations coming out in 2020. And then so, to be honest, I'm curious what you guys think. Twitch could have mentioned something, right? Almost like saying the community deserves to know. They decided not to. Maybe there was some sort of policy involved. But for that to just be completely silent for what, almost 4 years or almost 5 years, I just found that really interesting. Go ahead.
So, shout out to Alana Pierce. I watched her video, one of her videos on this, and she said there's a number of reasons why they might stay silent, and one of the big ones is the victim. And she was saying that a lot of times when the victim is they've already been through hell, and they know that when it's a high profile figure like this that gets accused, there's a large subset of their fan base who will make their lives hell for the rest of their life. Like, it'll never stop. And so they're like, look, I just want it to go away. We settled out of court or whatever the case may be. Just please don't say anything. I just want it to go away, and I want to move on with my life, because they know that they'll get harassed, name called. They'll be just ultra harassed and make their lives miserable, right? So she was saying that a lot of times companies will keep things like this quiet because it was requested by the victim. And when she said that, like, I really thought about that, and I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that does make sense. I mean, and if you look at some of the people that were on Twitter, like, just defending him, and kind of like carrying the pitchforks, and I mean, it was I could certainly see that, certainly see her point in saying that, Alana's point. But I do want to read his commentary on Twitter, on the Twitch ban. And he said, hello, I'd like to make a quick statement. Let's cut the effing bullshit. As you know, there's no filter with me. I've always been upfront and real with you guys on anything that I can be upfront about, and I'm always willing to accept responsibility, which is why I'm here now. First and foremost, I do want to apologize to everyone in the community, as well as those close to me, my team, and everyone at Midnight Society Game Studio. Now, he was fired from Midnight Society Game Studio. The co-founder of that studio actually did put out a statement on Twitter, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he basically said, look, I don't want to be associated with someone who has inappropriate conversations with minors.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, no, good for him. And he actually pointed out, look, this isn't a prep PR statement. I didn't run this through legal. This is my own. This is me speaking. And no, I don't disagree with him. I said this earlier. No adult should ever have inappropriate conversations with a minor. Period. And and that's. I mean. Anyhow, let me go back to his commentary here. It says a lot of people have been left in the dark about what happened yesterday with Midnight Society, and we made the painful decision collectively to have me step down. Our team is full of incredibly talented and good people that have high career ambitions and families. I never want to jeopardize the culture we have carefully crafted. Everyone has been wanting to know why I was banned from Twitch, but for reasons outside of my control, I was not allowed to say anything for the last several years. Now that 2 former Twitch employees have publicly disclosed the accusations, I can now tell you my side of the story regarding the ban. There was a Twitter employee who actually talked about what happened to Dr. Disrespect. Were there Twitch whisper messages with an individual minor back in 2017? The answer is yes. I believe at that 2017 is when apparently he was revealed he was having an affair with his wife.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting he's a family guy too.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah, he had an affair. Remember that? That came out in 2017. Actually, let me just double check that real quick. I don't want to. Let me see something here. Yeah, he did have an affair. He actually had some choice words to say to a fan who's joking about his affair. Somebody made a crude joke that he was still cheating on his wife, and he just let him have it. But that was something that happened. That he actually had an affair. Anyhow, where was I? Yes, minor with an individual minor back in 2017. The answer is yes. Were there real intentions behind these messages? The answer is absolutely not. I don't believe him. I just don't. Why are you having those conversations then? These were casual, mutual conversations that sometimes lean too much in the direction of being inappropriate, but nothing more. Again, you shouldn't be having inappropriate conversations. Nothing illegal happened. No pictures were shared. No crimes were committed. I never even met the individual. I guess just when I read that part there, I'm like, okay, so to me, it's like you're sorry but not sorry. I personally, I don't care that you didn't commit a crime, or you say you didn't commit a crime.
Right.
Again, you should.
Exactly.
You shouldn't be having inappropriate conversations with minors. And clearly you're saying these were casual, mutual conversations that sometimes lean too much in the direction of being inappropriate. You were an adult. You should say no. Whoever, like, if this person was being inappropriate to you as a minor, no, you stop. You're the adult.
Right.
Exactly.
And also, you shouldn't be, and if that wasn't the case, and you were the one that was kind of pushing the envelope, you shouldn't be doing that either. Go ahead, gentlemen. Please chime in.
It just reminds me when I was.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead. Well,
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I remember being a kid and watching a show with a gentleman named Chris Hansen. Do you guys remember him?
Yes, To Catch a Predator.
Yeah. Thank you. To Catch a Predator. He would, basically have this whole scenario where a responsible female or male over the age of 18 would be messaging and pretending to be underage. This is just for people who might be younger in the chat who may not have heard of this. And then they could very easily convince older men to drive hours to come to a house to meet with people for activities. And I remember when Chris Hansen would have the how would you say poise to have these predators sit down and interview them before they would get arrested, and their excuses remind me of what he said. Oh, it's not illegal, and oh, you what was it? I never saw her. It was just messages. Forget about it. But once you have that intent, I think the line gets very gray. I know it could leave it to a particular state, at least in the U.S., but um, it just it makes it just and then like I think the thing that bothers me the most about this, and the reason why I bring that up, is our laws are pretty lenient on these types of offenders. And I wish, I honestly, like, I look at some of the conviction rates and what time they may get. It's really, like, in my opinion, it's not literally a slap on the wrist, of course, but I just think the amount of time that you can get is low. It's not. It's not. I don't know. I just don't like it. So I don't want to get too much into the Catch a Predator show, but his reaction just reminded me exactly of those types of interviews, and I have to thank Chris Hansen for opening our eyes to this craziness.
Yeah, I guess, but what I think what Dr. I guess, like, to your point, it did remind me of the To Catch a Predator, because that is very often like the things that those guys would say. Oh, I know there was the guy who like brought pizza or something. He was, just bringing pizza. We were just having conversations, and what we don't know is what was said in those conversations. So if you're saying that they led and they lean too much in the direction of being inappropriate, that's a problem. I don't care if you weren't convicted of a crime, that if it was a civil dispute, you still shouldn't be having those conversations with a minor. That is just gross.
Look, like we shouldn't even. This shouldn't even have to be a necessary conversation to have. But like, there's supposed to be this switch you have as an adult. There's supposed to be this switch where, if a minor starts trying to take things in an inappropriate direction, you like immediately shut it down. Like, you don't go, like, how he could, like, I can't even like articulate like, this is a grown ass man. At the time this would have happened, I think he would have been like 35. Like, I can't even wrap my mind around how he can continue down an inappropriate road in a conversation. Like, I don't know. I can't really formulate sentences for this. It's disgusting. Like,
I think you have a wife.
Right. A wife and a child. He has a wife and a child.
Like, who's online seeing these things.
Like, what are you doing? At some point, like it just, like, in your mind, it should register to you, this isn't appropriate. There could be dire consequences to my reputation, to my livelihood, to my family, to my wife.
Which is all should be secondary thoughts.
And I'm not, I don't know what was said in those text messages, but if he's saying it leaned inappropriate, the first thing that comes to my mind
try to dress it up to not sound bad.
Yeah, there's probably some sexual innuendos that were being discussed via text. I mean, like, that's the only thing I think. I mean, like, I just, again, like, what is going through your mind? I mean, where's Barbara Walters? I mean, well, we know she's passed away. Yeah, rest in peace, Barbara Walters. But
rest in peace.
Like, Barbara Walters would be like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, because they weren't talking about boxing. So there's only one thing that could be inappropriate.
Yeah.
Like, and just, man.
But you have a wife.
And a wife and a child.
Like this.
And the reason I keep saying and a child is because, like, the word minor spans from year 17 all the way down to year 1. That's quite a big valley, and the levels of extremity only rise as the number descends. So the fact that you have a child and can allow your and can do something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Just
And they
that
might get
alone just
approached
blows
in
my
a
mind.
negative way. Right?
Exactly.
Like somebody might message them, or I don't know if they're in school. I don't know what age they are, but like imagine, I don't know, something your parent did, and then you're getting harassed for it. I'd be furious.
Yeah, it's man,
I honestly, like, I was reading his apology. I'm like, this is disgusting. I don't, and I said this to Logic. We were talking about it the other day. I'm like it's like, I'm sorry, not sorry. Yeah, you know, I was in a but I wasn't charged. It wasn't a criminal offense. You know.
yeah.
What do you think the community reaction will be like throughout the rest of the year? You know, I don't know what he expects to do with his platform, but I believe people will support him. I think there's still going to be
he already has a defense force.
Oh,
Right.
people are absolutely going to support him still.
It's crazy.
There are people who are. See, here's the thing, and we've seen this manifest ever since a certain year when a certain monumental event happened during a U.S. election. I'll leave it at that. You have people who will say there's no proof, and then they will continue to support him. And then if you supply proof, then they will say, yeah, but that happened like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. People can change, and they'll continue to support him. And then you could supply proof that it happened yesterday, and they say, yeah, you know why? Because everybody drove him into that because they kept harassing him, and then they'll continue to support him. People who like a certain person who provides a certain content that they enjoy to the point of quote unquote zealotry will do every form of mental gymnastics and twist their brain into a pretzel to justify being able to continue enjoying what this person provides and consuming the content of someone that they admire or they like. Now, you know, most normal people, well, not most, normal people will wash their hands and be like, dude, this is disgusting, I'm out. But the people who ran too deep, no, they're not going anywhere. And that's what's one of the most disturbing things about this.
Yeah. I'm just here shaking my head. I'm reading the rest of his tweet. I'm not going to bother reading the rest of it, but yeah, it's just wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. Pretty freaking awful. Like, I mean, I just take a knife and slice off all of the, you know, career, reputation, and, you know, has a family and a kid thing. Just slice that piece of the cake off and slide it to the side and just leave the slice of the cake that is him and a minor. Because all of that other stuff is secondary to the moral fact that you had inappropriate contact, verbal or otherwise, text or otherwise, with a freaking minor. Like how it could even be possible that his first reaction wasn't no, we can't do that. Look, we could have a nice conversation in the public chat in Twitter or Twitch or wherever, but I don't think we should be having conversations anymore in whispers. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that
absolutely
is the type of reaction you're supposed to have when a minor suddenly tries to take things, assuming it was that person who initiated this quote unquote inappropriate conversation. That's assuming they initiated it. Yeah. Because if he initiated it, then, you know,
we don't, and that's the thing, we don't know. We don't know if he initiated it. We don't know.
Yeah, we won't know. I doubt we'll ever know that unless somebody actually like leaks the text.
Yeah. And it's just, you know, Turtle Beach is, they've severed their partnership with him. That just came out.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Because he had some themed accessories, right? Like a headset or something like that, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Imagine if you
I just
money you might have paid for it.
there's a lack of humility here on his part too, which I think speaks to his character a bit. Where he's like, they want me to disappear. Yeah, effing right. Like, come on. That's not what you say after like all this stuff has come out 4 years later. Now he says he's a different person. Hopefully, maybe he is. You know, but just no humility. I think here in the statement.
And you saying that actually reminds me. Shout out to the Ash and Luca. She did a really good video on this, and one of the things that she said was he opened up this letter and closed this letter trying to stay in character. And for this type of situation, that's not something you do. And she dissected it really well. And yeah, like you don't tackle these type of allegations in character.
But I think part of his character was part of him. Like they talk about this in professional wrestling. Like if there's something, the best way to get over in professional wrestling, I can't believe I'm talking about professional wrestling, is to channel something about yourself into that character. So it comes across as
that's acting in general. Yeah, that's acting.
Well,
in general.
yeah, and so I think this is just I think this is just who he is, his character. Like that's part of who he is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how people can subconsciously label themselves correctly. I mean, Dr. Disrespect. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's a lot of what we do is subconscious.
Yeah. That's a great point, Ramon.
I mean, yeah, you know, he's telling you who he is.
Yeah. This brash, almost egomaniac who just, even in this tweet, just I just don't think he's showing any humility here. Like, Jesus, man. Just like it's yeah.
Oh.
I don't have anything else to say about him.
Yeah, no, it's hopefully you know, well, I want to say hopefully fades into obscurity, but you know, hopefully some form of justice arrives at this and then fades into obscurity. But, you know, it's not necessarily reflective of the world we live in, so we will see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, we know that all too well here in the U.S. Not to get political, you probably know what I'm talking about. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But anyhow. Yeah. Any other thoughts, Sean, before we wrap up the show on this particular topic?
Kofi, you want to go first?
No, I think guy disgusts me. I'm glad I was never associated with him or, you know, ever talked about him at all. You know, the community needs to come together and take away his money or hurt him in a way that isn't physical, but actually gets him to feel remorseful. Like you guys were saying, he's taking on this whole act. He feels like he's moved beyond it and never really, I don't know, truthfully, heartfelt apologize. So I think the community can do that if we continue to criticize, but yeah, I'm not sure how long that'll be.
Yeah. Well, my final thoughts I'll bring us back up out of the pond scum and back to the fresh water. Ray tracing is awesome. I highly recommend everyone try it. You don't need a PC to do it. I mean, you need a powerful PC to enjoy it to its fullest, but you no longer need a PC to enjoy ray tracing. We have it on our consoles. I highly recommend you try it because it is a beautiful experience. And secondly, I am terrified of tomorrow because the Steam summer sale will activate at 10 a.m. PST, and I'm afraid. And
welcome
support
to the Steam summer sale,
indie
Ramon.
games. Oh my God, dude! It's the winter sale was already ridiculous.
No,
and,
you wait till you see the summer sale.
Yeah. Oh my
Usually-
God, dude! I just like I'm gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, no, you definitely are. You
Support
definitely are.
indies,
Yes.
guys. The chat, everyone listening.
Support.
There are gems out there. Buy indie games. Buy AA games. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. I downloaded the demo and tried it, and it's good. I'm going to buy it tomorrow. We've never had more variety in terms of content, genre, and price than we ever have at this moment. So for gamers, we're in a golden age. Buy indies, buy AA's, and your AAA's too. But there's variety out there, so just live it up, man. Best hobby.
That's a great point, Ramon. There's a lot of I don't think like people really, and maybe they do, but I think some of these content creators, the grifters, the ones that are really solely platform specific, and I say it's mostly on the Xbox side of things, but I don't think they really appreciate the art form of gaming because there's so much variety, so much a lot of creativity in the medium that people don't celebrate enough, and that bugs me. So that's a great point, Ramon, about indies and some of these creative pieces of artwork because it's art.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. One of the things I like about your show and Slow Mo and Forte DPS, you guys like. I don't see like a lot of other content creators, like you watch their shows and you can tell, like, I think being so involved in gaming has burned them out and maybe they don't realize it because they're far more negative on games than positive, and that's all you see. You see the criticisms, you see the negativity, no celebration of games. And there's always, obviously, you're covering the news and the conversation. It's going to be negative stuff because, we're human beings. It's just a duality. But celebrating games and, and talking about all the positive stuff and the fun of this hobby, because that's the sole purpose of this hobby from our side of it is to entertain us and make us happy. They try to find a way to do that because that's how they make money. But for our purpose, it's to make us happy and to enjoy it. And yes, I saw the comment from dude over here saying Steam finna take your wallet. Variety of games to play is on Game Pass. I have my own subscription service. It's called Ramon Pass. I have hundreds of games in my subscription service that I no longer have to pay for. And occasionally Steam will do a sale where I get games that are $50, $60, $70 for $4, $5, $6, $10, $20. And that's my subscription service called Ramon Pass. And that's how I choose to consume my gaming. And if you consume your gaming through Game Pass, more power to you. And I hope you're enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
There's somebody say DPS. Did I hear DPS?
Yes. What's up, Forte?
Yeah.
Forte,
Forte, what's happening?
Before we wrap up the show, please plug DPS right now.
Oh man, I was actually listening because I was going to jump in when y'all were over because I didn't want to extend the show because you know how I can be. I was going to jump in after y'all were done and closed it out. But yeah, DPS tomorrow with the homie Slow Mo. Don't know what the topics are because Slow Mo's hosting tomorrow, so he's going to send me an outline probably tonight or tomorrow. Kind of got a feeling I already know what most of the show is going to be about, but yeah, it's going to be a great time. So come check us out at 9:00 tomorrow. I just heard our name and the great Ramon Terrell and the great Kofi and the amazing BRAP. Shout out to the other people that were on the panel.
Yeah.
Real quick, I gotta throw this in. Sorry, Brad.
What up, though?
Trying to extend the show.
See, this is why I was trying to wait till the show was over.
This applies to you specifically, Forte. The first time, I think it was the second or third time I was watching Crossfire, when I was new to the quote unquote community, and Mooch is talking about everybody. He's like the great Forte, blah 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 blah. I didn't realize that was his thing, so I literally went on. I can't remember if it was Twitter or YouTube, but I typed in the great Forte because I was trying to find you and I couldn't find you. And it wasn't
That's
until
pretty
the
funny.
next show when I heard him like, the great, this is the great. I was like, oh, okay. He calls everybody the great. So, like, shout out to you, Mooch, if you're hearing this, man. Like, I freaking love your show. You're one when I first entered the community. Like, it was just you're part of the great experience I had when I first got here. So.
Man, let me tell you when he does that, everybody feels like they're magicians. Because that's exactly what it sounded like. It was like the great Gaming Forte, or the great Forte, or the great slow mo backslap. DPS podcast, a great show. Make sure you all go over there and check it out. No, listen. People always try to give Mooch. They try to give Mooch problems and stuff like that. I always tell people, I was like, listen, I know who Mooch is. I know what Mooch is always going to be. But the one thing I will always say is that man is super genuine to how he feels, and he supports the people that he likes and that he jives with. And you can never ask for anything more or less from a person. And he's super genuine. Maybe in the past people had issues with him, but dude, listen, that dude is the most genuine dude on this platform because I know exactly who he is, and he doesn't disappoint me.
Yeah, well, thank you, Forte, for stopping by. Even if it was at the end of the show, sir, I appreciate you coming through.
Well,
yeah. Also want to give a big shout out to David Faulkner Falky, who was with us earlier, and Game Logic. Unfortunately, had a drop. So big shout out to Game Logic. He had a drop because of issues with Discord. But Ramon, I don't know if you want to be found, but if you do, let everyone know where they can find you.
I am literally all you have to do is type my name. Twitter is a little bit different, and yes, I'm calling it Twitter because I refuse to call it X. Just Ramon _Terrell. That's my handle. And if you like reading epic fantasy humor, and some urban fantasy as well, again, just type in my name. You'll find my books anywhere online. And otherwise, enjoy our fantastic hobby of gaming. And well, that's going to do it. Thank you, BRAP, for having me on. I really appreciate it. I love it whenever I get to be on the show. And Kofi, it's been a pleasure. It's nice to finally get to share a panel with you. And Forte, always a pleasure. Thanks a lot, guys.
As always.
No, thank you, Ramon, again for joining us this evening. Really appreciate it. Always a pleasure having you on. And Kofi, I don't know if you want to be found, but if you do, please let everyone know they can find you. And by the way, Kofi, when you finally finish Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we need to talk about it on a podcast.
Yes, work got a little bit crazy at the beginning of the year, new job, but now it's finally nice to be playing some games. Thank you for having me on. Shout out to everybody. Ramon, awesome chatting with you. Forte, great chatting with you, catching up. Gaming is so exciting for JRPG gamers this year. Often BRAP and I have a statement we say to each other. We say Atlas gods because we love some of the Atlas games.
I'm going to say the From Gods right now, by the way.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, with Elden Ring, Erdtree.
Man, I've been watching all you guys suffering. Eventually, I'll get to that.
I lost 400,000 runes the other night.
Oh man!
I'm so sorry.
So was that high-pitched scream that I heard even from where I am? I was wondering what that was.
You said I did. Yo, so of course, I probably mentioned on the cast, I'm a huge fan of a developer called Falcom, and they are releasing a game that I participated in a fan translation for back in 2021. And the official localization name is Trails Through Daybreak. So I'm always going to be just promoting the series. I love the series, but of course, in Japan, a newer sequel will be out in September. So from July into September, there's I think a new Japanese JRPG import I'll be posting on Twitter. That's creative_Kofi. Once Rebirth and Stella Blade are out of the way. So definitely looking forward to chatting with you there.
Thank you, Kofi. No, definitely, man. And I may do a BRAP rant maybe Friday, as I'm off Friday. So keep an eye out for that. Give me a follow at BRAP_podcast. That's where I post all show-related content, notes, programming updates, all that good stuff. But please check out DPS Podcast tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That's going to be on Slow-Mo's channel. And then I will be on Crossfire tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And yeah, and that's on
Looking
Lucha's
forward to
channel.
it.
So yeah, so just thank you everyone for hanging out with us this evening. Really appreciate the time. Please hit that like button if you haven't done so already. I love that Forte put Ramon's
IMDb.
I love that.
7 times.
That's funny. 7 times. Yeah,
We
that
gotta
is
put it up.
hilarious.
Let's
That's
go.
funny. But please please hit that like button if you haven't done so. Helps people find the channel. If you're new, subscribe. Hit the bell notification so we are alerted when we go live. But thank you again, gentlemen, the panel, the guests this evening. Great show. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.